Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, nightly sightings of mysterious drones in New Jersey. Lawmakers are calling for more action despite the White House downplaying the phenomenon. And one New Jersey resident describes what he saw flying in the sky on the way home from work, saying it was the size of a school bus. The CEO of Unitedhealth's parent company responds to the murder of his colleague Brian Thompson. And police say Thompson's alleged killer was not a client of Unitedhealth. Chris Beers has the latest. Ukraine reports a major Russian attack against its energy grid, causing power cuts amid brutal winter temperatures. Arian Pastar tells us how Ukraine wants the world to respond. An American man who was released from a prison in Syria is flown out of the country. Find out more about Travis Timmerman's story. A growing number of tech giants and their executives are committing to donate to President-elect Trump's Inauguration Fund. This is as many of Trump's nominees are critical of big tech censorship. Jack Bradley is in Palm Beach, Florida, with the latest on the Trump transition. And the Franklin fire in Malibu has scorched over 4,000 acres, destroying homes and leaving some areas off limits, while others are now allowed to return home as firefighters make steady progress. Christina Corona brings the update from Los Angeles.
This is NTD Evening News. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. Weeks of mysterious drone sightings over parts of the Northeast are quickly gaining national attention now. Their nightly appearances are prompting heightened security concerns and mounting frustrations from residents, the military, and multiple government agencies, all the way to Capitol Hill.
That's not somebody who went to Best Buy and picked up a toy. That's a legitimate aircraft.
New Jersey State Assemblyman Brian Bergen is talking about sizable drones seen almost daily, primarily at night, often in groups, and able to evade authorities over his state and neighboring New York.
Look how close they are to each other.
Yeah, commercial flights wouldn't be that close.
No way. Not three all in the same spot.
Bergen and many of his fellow lawmakers have grown increasingly frustrated by the lack of answers from state and federal law enforcement agencies, including the Department of Homeland Security.
They should figure out what the hell they are and where they're coming from and who's responsible.
It's a bit embarrassing that given the length of time and the number of sightings, that we don't have information.
They should be shot down if necessary, because they're flying over sensitive areas.
Assemblyman Bergen, a former combat veteran and Army aviator, joked on X he could end the drone problem with a borrowed Apache helicopter. But getting hands on one of the drones is a serious matter.
We need to get one of these things on the ground, take it apart, find out whose it is.
The Pentagon pushed back on rumors an offshore adversary was involved.
There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
Claims offering little assurance to those living under the nightly airborne invaders.
They're creating so much fear and uneasiness in the public. It's highly inappropriate, and it's really something we have to get to the bottom of.
The federal government has responded to the mysterious drone sightings. White House National Security spokesman John Kirby yesterday said there is no evidence the reported drone sightings pose a national security or public safety threat or have foreign nexus. He added that the drones could actually be manned aircraft and they have not uncovered malicious intent at this stage. A federal official said yesterday the FBI is leading the investigation with support from the New Jersey State Police and local law enforcement. According to the FAA, the sightings began November 18th. Local lawmakers say drones were spotted around a U.S. military research facility, Trump's golf course, local reservoirs, and critical infrastructure. Federal agencies have ruled out any connections to local, state, or federal governments to the sightings. One New Jersey resident on his way home from work says he spotted a strange object flying in the night sky on November 30th. The experienced birdwatcher said he was both intrigued and alarmed. Here's what he said about the sighting.
I'm driving into Montclair, and all of a sudden, right over the horizon, I see what looks like the full moon. Only it can't be the full moon because the full moon was 2 weeks ago. It was just about the size of a school bus, hovering about 150 feet over the trees, and I can't keep my eyes off it, yet I want to take a picture. So I jump out of the car, to get a better look at it, and I'm also hoping that someone else is there, but it's like late at night, there's no other cars on the road. I pull over, get out of my car, it's now hovering right over the trees, and then I realize I should take a picture. I reach back into my car, grab my phone, and as I come back out of my car with my phone, I go up to take a picture, and it starts immediately zooming away, almost like it had seen what I was trying to do. No sound. I did not hear anything, and I don't even know if it's a drone. It had lights on it, which is weird because when I saw it in the distance, it was all white. But when it got closer and started hovering, there were green and red lights. I've seen plenty of drones. I'm also an experienced birder. I've been bird watching since 4th grade. I'm the president of the Montclair Bird Club. I know how to look in the sky. I know how to identify things. So to me, it's not like I'm this like amateur sky gazer. This was like, I right away knew this was something unusual, very unusual. I would just like the government to be a little more open about what's going on here, because it's scary. You got stuff flying at night in the sky over like, very highly populated area. You want to at least have a little bit of like transparency and let us know that, we have nothing to worry about, because like people are actually starting to panic a little bit.
Cutler said he contacted the Federal Aviation Administration and the FBI after the sighting. He said they have not responded. And President-elect Trump reacted to the drone sightings earlier this evening on Truth Social. He posted, quote, "Can this really be happening without our government's knowledge? I don't think so. Let the public know, and now. Otherwise, shoot them down." Critics of Unitedhealth are threatening employees after the killing of the company's CEO. Some call murder suspect Luigi Mangione a hero. The CEO of parent company Unitedhealth Group responded in an op-ed published in the New York Times this morning. NTD's Chris Spears has the story.
The CEO of Unitedhealth Group, UnitedHealthcare's parent company, Andrew Whitty, expresses grief about the death of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. He wrote an op-ed in the New York Times published Friday morning. He also acknowledged problems with the healthcare industry, saying, "We know the health system does not work as well as it should. Our mission is to help make it work better." Talk about improving the health system is something other healthcare executives are picking up on. Here's Caroline Rowan, Chief Sustainability Officer at Pfizer, and Vin Gupta, Chief Medical Officer at Amazon Pharmacy.
I think all of us are taking a step back and trying to understand what's happening with patients and their experiences. We always do that at Pfizer. I know you do that at Amazon. But clearly there's a larger dialogue that needs to happen, and we're going to be taking our time to try to understand exactly what happened and understand that feedback and see where we can play a positive role. Vin?
Two things can be true. One is our health system needs to be better. I think we all agree on that, and there's a lot of things that for decades, this is not new to the events of last week, which, horrifically tragic. There's a lot of things that should cause a lot of outrage by many of us. That's why we're building what we're building at Amazon, because we think that we can be part of a better solution.
In the op-ed I just mentioned, the Unitedhealth Group CEO also describes who victim Brian Thompson was as a person. He tells us Thompson grew up in a working-class Iowa family and said, quote, "The ideas he advocated were aimed at making health care more human," end quote. His effort to humanize Thompson comes when some are celebrating the CEO's death. Social media posts and videos of people calling Thompson's killer a hero are circulating online. At the same time, speculation about murder suspect Luigi Mangione's life is also circulating online and making headlines. Posts by an archived Reddit account show details matching those about Mangione's life revealed in the handwritten documents he had when arrested. That account posted about having severe back pain, something the person Mangione lived with in Hawaii alleged. Authorities are looking into all of this carefully. Here's the Deputy Commissioner of Intelligence and Counterterrorism at the NYPD.
We're in these stages of an investigation we're latching on to a particular set of facts, something we're hearing from somebody, something we're seeing online. And those anecdotes do not data make, right? It's really dangerous to draw any conclusions that would take you in one direction or another before you've really done your whole investigation, talk to everybody that you feel you need to talk to. So those gaps are going to be narrowing.
So while we're hearing a lot of speculation, it's important to remember this investigation is ongoing. Police have said there's no indication Luigi Mangione was ever a UnitedHealthcare client. Lastly, the murder suspect now has 2 court dates. The one on December 23rd is about his Pennsylvania charges. The second one, on December 30th, is about his bail request. Chris Beers, NTD News.
Russia today reportedly launching a massive attack on Ukrainian energy facilities. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says it's one of Moscow's largest attacks on Ukraine's grid yet. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar has the latest on the attack during Ukraine's harsh winter.
The cold winter is affecting Ukrainians amid Russian attacks. On Friday, Ukraine reported the 12th major assault on its energy system this year. This forced authorities to impose long electricity cuts for millions of civilians. Winter weather is currently at around 20 degrees Fahrenheit, which increases the impact of such attacks.
We were leaving and there was still gas, but there was no electricity on our side.
People in Kyiv on Friday once again sheltering in metro stations.
I'd rather be going to work now, but as you can see yourself, an air raid alert was issued and we had to go to the shelter to hide from missiles.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky claims Friday's attack shows Russia's intentions for the war, saying this is Putin's peace plan to destroy everything. This is how he wants negotiations, by terrorizing millions of people. Zelensky is now calling for a strong international reaction, saying sanctions against Russia for the war must be strengthened to genuinely impact Russia's missile production. People in Kyiv say they want officials to do something to end the conflict.
This has to be resolved somehow on the highest level, so people won't suffer and come back to their normal lives somehow.
Meanwhile, in eastern Ukraine, residents had to leave the key city of Pavlohrad as Russian forces keep advancing.
It's just over a mile to the front line, you can hear it. Mortars and mines are flying. Drones are basically like crows. It's very scary.
Moscow reportedly launched more than 90 missiles in Friday's attack on the energy grid. One of those missiles was allegedly manufactured in North Korea. Another 200 drones were also used during the attack. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
An American man who had spent 7 months in a Syrian prison is now safely out of the country. A U.S. military helicopter transported Travis Timmerman out of Syria. The man from Missouri had gone missing 7 months ago in Hungary. Timmerman said he was on a Christian pilgrimage when he crossed into Syria illegally on foot. He was captured and put into one of the country's notorious detention facilities. Rebel groups who toppled Syria's Assad regime released Timmerman Monday morning, along with dozens of others held at the prison. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken made an unannounced stop in Iraq today on his latest visit to the Middle East. It's aimed at stabilizing the situation in Syria to prevent further regional turmoil.
We spent time talking about, understandably, the situation in Syria and the conviction of so many countries in the region and beyond that as Syria transitions from the Assad dictatorship to hopefully a democracy, it does so in a way that, of course, protects all of the minorities in Syria, that produces an inclusive, non-sectarian government, and does not become in any way a platform for terrorism.
Blinken met in Baghdad with the Prime Minister of Iraq. After the meeting, he urged nations in the Middle East to support a peaceful Syrian political transition. Blinken has already been to Jordan and Turkey on his current tour and will return to Jordan for urgent meetings tomorrow. He will meet with Arab foreign ministers to try to unify support for an inclusive transition in Syria. Earlier today, Blinken also met with the foreign minister of Turkey. They discussed the transition in Syria and also ways to bring about a ceasefire and hostage deal in the Israel-Hamas war. Firefighters are making steady progress in containing the Franklin fire in Malibu as cooler weather and calmer winds help their efforts. While some residents have been allowed to return home, steep terrain and dry brush continue to pose challenges. NTD's Christina Corona has the latest details.
As of Friday afternoon, the Franklin fire in Malibu has burned 4,037 acres, with containment now at 30%. The wildfire has caused significant damage, destroying 14 structures, including 6 single-family homes and 6 outbuildings, and damaging 13 others. More than 3,000 residents had been allowed to return home by Thursday, but several areas remain closed and accessible only to emergency crews. Officials shared their top priorities at a Friday news conference.
All actions and efforts will focus on safeguarding the residents and resources of Los Angeles, minimize damage to structures, private and public property, and other improvements in the fire area, ensure repopulation takes place in a quick, efficient, and effective manner.
More than 2,000 firefighters are battling the blaze, supported by water-dropping aircraft. Fire activity has remained minimal since Thursday, with no significant growth reported. Cooler temperatures, higher humidity, and calmer winds have helped firefighters gain ground. However, officials warn that conditions remain challenging due to critically dry brush and steep terrain.
We've got very critically dry brush, steep slopes, and we're going to see some moderate winds this afternoon. All we need is a significant heat source in order to get those fields burning.
Officials report that wind gusts of 10 to 15 miles per hour are expected in areas north and northeast of Malibu Canyon. The cause of the Franklin fire is still under investigation. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suffered an injury on an official visit to Europe. She was admitted to a hospital for evaluation. Pelosi's office said in a statement today she was traveling with a bipartisan congressional delegation in Luxembourg to mark the 80th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge. It was the largest and bloodiest battle that U.S. troops fought against Nazi Germany in the final months of the Second World War. The statement reads, Speaker Emerita Pelosi is currently receiving excellent treatment from doctors and medical professionals. She looks forward to returning home to the U.S. soon. 84-year-old Pelosi will continue to work while receiving medical treatment. The extent of her injury and how she was injured are still unknown. Coming up, transnational repression by the Chinese Communist Party on U.S. soil. President Biden is the latest to take action on this growing concern. Jason Blair brings us an update from Washington, D.C. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. President Biden creates a task force targeting the Chinese Communist Party's transnational repression on U.S. soil. NTD correspondent Jason Blair joins us now from our studio in Washington, D.C. Good evening, Jason. What can you tell us about this recent action by the president?
Yeah, President Biden did put this together on Thursday. He directed some people to create this task force. He says it's consistent with the 2023 National Defense Authorization Act, and he said it will be chaired by the Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs and vice-chaired by Director of the National Economic Council. Now, to paraphrase kind of what Biden said in the memorandum on Thursday, the task force will monitor and counter any censorship and intimidation tactics by the CCP in the U.S. on U.S. ground and in any of its territories. And Biden also specifically mentioned, quote, including a U.S. company that conducts business in China that is exercising their freedom of speech here in the U.S.
And Jason, what are some examples of actions by the CCP that this task force will be countering?
Yeah, there are really a broad amount of people that the CCP does target. As I mentioned, Biden specifically mentioned businesses that are doing business in China. One good example of that was back in 2019 with the NBA. The NBA has a huge market over in China, and there was a manager by the Houston Rockets that posted on Twitter, basically in support of these protests that were going on in Hong Kong, in support of the Hong Kong protesters. The CCP did not like that. Later on, he issued a public apology, which caused a big uproar and a lot of debate in the United States over this topic, and it's really just grown quite a lot. A lot of concern around it has grown since then. Another highly targeted group are CCP dissidents, people that have escaped China, escaped the CCP, and come over here to the U.S. legally. A lot of them have reported being attacked, being harassed, being intimidated, here on U.S. ground. Some of them have been at protests, or some of them maybe write something online that the CCP doesn't like. A lot of this is also related to the so-called police stations that have been popping up all over around the world, all over the U.S., and been in the process of being shut down. Many of them have been shut down, but they are still popping up. People are still finding them around the U.S. And I've actually talked to a lot of people that have been physically attacked, like you saw just now, that gentleman that was put in a hospital after protesting in San Francisco. So I've seen some of this with my own eyes, and it really is a really big issue.
Jason, this topic seems to be gaining more attention in the national spotlight. Have any similar efforts been taken recently?
Yeah, actually, just last month, I did a report on Texas Governor Greg Abbott. He did 3 executive orders on this topic, targeting the CCP's action, specifically in Texas. They have been doing stuff to damage infrastructure, kind of planning that, and also trying to steal information from companies, from different government departments, and also an executive order targeting specifically the CCP's intimidation tactics towards people. Like I just saw, Greg Abbott did actually say that in some cases they have found that they have been trying to physically take people out of the U.S. that are here legally and take them back over to China. And another thing was that this type of issue has been addressed in different bills going through Congress. Some of them have actually died in Congress, but some of them are still going through the legislative process. And many of them did include this idea of the task force that Biden just implemented. So it seems like Biden kind of took this idea that has been brought up a lot and went ahead and took the initiative to create this task force on a federal level so they can address it more broadly. Back to you.
All right, Jason, thanks for that update. The FBI says it's investigating a mass shooting threat made against a theater in Atlanta, Georgia. The theater received a message yesterday with a photo of a gun and ammunition. The sender threatened to shoot attendees if the venue hosts the Shen Performing Arts Group later this month.
The show must go on is the message in Atlanta, Georgia. That's despite a mass shooting threat made against the Shen Performing Arts World Tour. On Thursday, a theater received a message written in Chinese, along with the photo of a gun and ammunition. The sender threatened to break in and shoot everyone during Shen Yun's performance later this month. Organizers say the FBI is now investigating, and the show will go on as planned. Shen Yun is a classical Chinese dance company that has been targeted by the Chinese Communist Party since it was founded in 2006.
The very nature of the show, where they present the culture of China, the Chinese Communist Party has spent decades trying to destroy.
Shen Yun says the Chinese regime has tried to sabotage its tour more than 130 times. Its records detail how the regime has pressured local elected officials, threatened theater managers, made bomb threats, and even slashed the tires of Shen Yun buses. Last month, a Chinese agent was sentenced to prison in New York for trying to bribe an IRS agent. His goal was to get Shen Yun's nonprofit status revoked.
The Chinese Communist Party has been doing this for decades, creating different paths of influence of people they can manipulate to carry out these exact operations.
Shen Yun is a global sensation, performing for over 1 million people every year. It highlights the human rights abuses suffered by people in China today. This has made it a target for the Chinese regime. The group was founded by practitioners of the spiritual practice Falun Gong. It's heavily persecuted in China. Recent whistleblower accounts and leaked documents reveal that the Chinese Communist Party is now escalating its attacks on Falun Gong in America. Its main target is Shen and other organizations founded by Falun Gong practitioners.
Coming up, unexplained drones in the Northeast put residents and lawmakers on alert. A national security specialist speaks with us about the drones and the federal response to it so far. And President-elect Trump and his allies have vowed to secure the border starting from day one after he's inaugurated. How will they do it? Our legal correspondent Arlene Richards explores after the break. Welcome back. If you're just joining us now, here are some of today's top headlines. Ukraine reported a major Russian missile attack on its energy grid, making it one of the largest attacks on its energy sector. The damage forced Ukrainian authorities to impose long electricity cuts for millions of civilians. The U.S. military flew an American man out of Syria following his release from prison. Travis Timmerman had spent 7 months in a Syrian prison after crossing into the country on a Christian pilgrimage. Unitedhealthcare's parent company, Unitedhealth Group, published an op-ed in response to the murder of CEO Brian Thompson. The group acknowledged problems with the healthcare industry. Meanwhile, police said suspect Luigi Mangione was not a client of Unitedhealthcare. Lawmakers grew increasingly concerned about nightly sightings of mysterious drones in New Jersey. Some pressed for more information and more resources to investigate, while the Pentagon denied claims that the drones are connected to Iran. Joining us now to share his insight into the mysterious drones and the official response so far is Casey Fleming, CEO of Black Ops Partners Corporation and a national security advisor. Casey, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again. Now, with these multiple sightings of drones as big as bicycles flying around New Jersey at night, the FBI is actively investigating, but the drones remain unexplained. Now, the Pentagon is quashing theories of an Iranian mothership. What do you make of the official response so far?
The official response is too little too late, which is normal with our government. People need to understand that whoever's doing it is they are trying to instill fear into the American public. If it is a nefarious nation state, whether it's the Chinese Communist Party, don't forget the balloon incident back in the past. This could be another test of our defenses. But number one, it also is a test of our sovereignty if it is from a nefarious nation state. So are our skies sovereign? The government says that these are normal aircraft being piloted. So an aircraft is much bigger than a bicycle. It's much bigger than an SUV. And the reports are that they are the size of SUVs and potentially bicycles as well. So the big thing is the sovereign protection of our skies over our cities and our homes. And then underneath that, there's kind of two areas that you have to look at. Number one, are they doing a test to spread bioagents, biowarfare, or are they doing a test for a bomb situation? So both of those have to be considered. I'm not about fear. I'm not about being an alarmist. But when you look at the intelligence that we've looked at for many, many years, this is the escalation of the war side of China. They are on a war footing. And these could be very much tests of our capabilities. It also can be used for espionage as well. I hope it's not just a bunch of teenagers that are trying to do this overnight. But whoever's doing it, it's very serious, and we need to get the answer to it.
Now, the FBI and DHS said in a joint statement yesterday that these drones don't pose a national security or public safety threat. How do agencies determine that?
Well, they hopefully will understand where they are launching from, which I don't think that from all our indications we don't know where they're launching from. So what's the origin? And then secondly, getting one or two of them that have hit the ground and looking through them to see manufacture, to see the radio transmission frequencies, if there's any video stored on them, and so on. But my question also is, why don't we have spotters out at night? Why don't we have spotters looking for these things? And quite honestly, why isn't local law enforcement shooting them down? If it really is, if these really are legally flown drones, then we need to call a moratorium and say if anything flies, it can be shot down. So it's too little too late from our federal government, and our local law enforcement should be taking much more of an active approach on this, from a spotters piece of it, a reporting piece of it, and even, in my opinion, taking helicopters up and shooting the things down if that's what it requires to get a handle on what this situation is. Again, we just faced a balloon situation, allowed it to transverse our entire country before we shot it down way past the eastern border of the United States. It's something that raises caution. Our enemies are on a war footing, and this cannot be taken lightly. I hope it's not teenagers. If it is, they're playing one heck of a bad hoax that could get a lot of people in trouble.
Now, given that some of these drones are quite large, reports and the White House are saying that they could be manned aircraft. What is the significance if these are manned versus unmanned?
Well, they're all manned. So somebody's at the controls of manning these unmanned drones. So somebody's at the controls, so therefore they're manned. The other question is, manned means there's actually a human piloting the aircraft. So those are both sides of what the manned equation is. So these are all being manned. Someone is in control on the ground of these things. From my understanding, they're certainly not big enough to carry a human being. So they are being manned from someone on the ground, or some nation state on the ground.
Now, if these are drones, what might they be capable of? What information could they gather, especially around these sensitive military sites?
Well, first of all, espionage. They can record all types of espionage with high-definition cameras, high-resolution cameras. And as I mentioned earlier, also could be a test of bioweapons in major population areas, releasing canisters of very lethal bioweapons, as well as bombs. High-intensity bombs, which could be anywhere, any type of bomb-making materials and so on. They can be directed very accurately with drones. So it's really about sovereignty and protecting the American people. And the American people need to be all up in arms with their local law enforcement, their local representation in the federal government, and drive for these answers. In addition, local law enforcement, like I said, should be out there having spotters, calling a ban on any aircraft flying in these areas over the next 72 hours, and get to the bottom of it.
Now, you did mention these could be used for espionage. If that is the case, how far could these drones transmit that intelligence?
We don't know if they have satellite transmission, so up to a satellite. They can be recording it on SD cards or hard drives inside the drones. Drones that are out there today can carry heavy payloads than what they were able to do 2 and 3 years ago. So, like I said, those drones can come back to the originator with hard drives or with, say, SD cards. And again, they can also carry telecommunications equipment that can transmit to satellites. They can carry that much weight as they traverse the skies.
Casey Fleming, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Another billionaire tech giant CEO is donating $1 million to President-elect Donald Trump's Inauguration Fund. NTD's Jack Bradley has the latest on the Trump transition from Palm Beach, Florida, outside of Trump's Mar-a-Lago.
OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman is the latest tech billionaire to contribute $1 million to President-elect Donald Trump's Inauguration Fund. Amazon and Meta also recently pledging $1 million each to the inauguration. These companies are working to improve their relationship with the incoming administration, whose members have called out big tech censorship. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is also planning to visit Trump within the next few days. Bezos also owns the Washington Post, which did not endorse a candidate in the presidential election. It usually endorses the Democratic nominee. A couple weeks ago, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg had a private meeting with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. Meanwhile, Trump is also saying that the Republican Party will end daylight saving time. He wrote on Truth Social today, quote, "The Republican Party will use its best efforts to eliminate daylight saving time, which has a small but strong constituency, but shouldn't. Daylight saving time is inconvenient and very costly to our nation." This change would need to be approved by Congress, but many senators are calling for action by the incoming Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. Musk and Ramaswamy have previously posted on X showing support for abolishing daylight saving time. They intend to make daylight savings permanent, so you always have that extra hour of sunlight at the end of the day. Trump's nominee for Secretary of State, Senator Marco Rubio from Florida, sponsored a bill in support of the change last year. It's called the Sunshine Protection Act. It passed the Senate last year unanimously, but stalled in the House and expired by the end of the legislative session. The U.S. started daylight savings in 1918 to save oil and electricity during World War I. Both Arizona and Hawaii have opted out of daylight savings. Meanwhile, incoming Vice President J.D. Vance has invited Daniel Penny to watch the Army-Navy game tomorrow. Penny was just acquitted over the 2023 chokehold death of Jordan Neely on the New York City subway. Vance wrote on X that Daniel Penny is a good guy. He says that he's grateful Penny accepted his invitation and hopes that he'll have some fun and appreciate how much his fellow citizens admire his courage. Penny and Vance will watch the game from President-elect Trump's suite at the Washington Commanders Stadium in Landover, Maryland. And just yesterday, New York Mayor Eric Adams met with Tom Homan, Trump's border czar pick. Adams said he's committed to keeping New Yorkers safe. He was enthusiastic to work with the incoming administration. He also said that the shelter system in New York is overburdened and that he will not go after migrants that contribute to society, but the ones that commit further crimes.
We're going to protect the rights of immigrants in the city that are hardworking, giving back to the city in a real way. We're not going to be a safe haven for those who commit repeated violent crimes against innocent migrants, immigrants, and longstanding New Yorkers. We made terrible mistakes in the past by preventing to keep our city safe from those who have committed repeated acts of violence, particularly these dangerous gangs that we have witnessed in our city, and we're not going to continue in that direction.
Adams has said that he could use executive orders to bypass the city council and change sanctuary city laws. Homan later told Fox News that he wished other Democratic mayors were like Eric Adams.
Look, I sat down with the mayor for well over an hour. He gets it. And today he proved that as the mayor of New York City, he's more concerned with public safety than politics.
A Siena College poll earlier this month shows that 54% of registered voters in New York State support Trump's plans for mass deportations. Reporting from Palm Beach, Florida, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
President-elect Trump and his associates have vowed to secure the border starting on day one and to set in motion a mass deportation operation. Our legal correspondent, Arlene Richards, reviews the plan.
In recent weeks, President-elect Trump and his appointees have been frequently talking on television with a consistent message about illegal immigration.
Well, we're going to do something with the border, and very strong, very powerful. That'll be our first signal, and a first signal to America that we're not playing games.
Our priority right out of the gates is criminal aliens, ones who are here illegally that committed a crime.
It is President Trump's insistence and expectation that the United States of America will be protected from the continued invasion along our southern border.
Trump has repeatedly said he will push for mass deportations.
We have people coming in by the millions, as you know, and a lot of people shouldn't be here. Most of them shouldn't be here, but we have jails being emptied into our country. We have mental institutions from all over the world being emptied into our country.
Democratic Senator Dick Durbin said it would cost hundreds of billions of dollars to deport every illegal immigrant.
It would damage our economy and separate American families. Instead, we should focus on deporting those who are truly a danger to America.
Durbin warned that Trump's plan would separate families and eliminate millions of workers in the agricultural industry. Trump's plan starts with reinstating several of his first-term border policies on day one. Those include executive orders on border security, interior enforcement, and limiting refugees. Trump's top promise in the first term was to build a border wall. He also signed off on new policies to stop illegal immigrants from entering or staying in the U.S., such as Proclamation 9645, a policy that barred entry to nationals of 7 countries designated as potential security threats, and the Remain in Mexico policy, or the Migrant Protection Protocols. designed to remove non-Mexican nationals entering the U.S. illegally. They were returned to Mexico to wait for their removal proceedings to be finalized. This time, Trump is planning ahead. He's been talking to some in the private sector about potential detention spaces. The state of Texas offered Trump a 1,400-acre site to build detention centers that will temporarily house millions of immigrants in transition. But law professor Jean Lance Reese said it could take years to remove the backlog, not to mention all of the potential lawsuits. California Governor Gavin Newsom says he's prepared to fight deportation efforts in court. Meanwhile, Trump and his associates have been meeting with Republican lawmakers. They're urging them to pass a reconciliation package that focuses on investing in border security. Senator Lindsey Graham, who's slated to lead the Senate Budget Committee, supports the package. He said on X, "My top priority and the first order of business in the Senate Budget Committee is to secure a broken border." Stephen Miller, Trump's pick for Deputy Chief of Staff, told Fox News the package would be a game changer.
That would mean a massive increase in ICE officers working on the deportation operation that Tom Homan just laid out. That would mean a historic increase in border agents, a pay raise for both, full funding for military operations, full funding for ICE beds, full funding for air and marine operations, full funding for all of the barriers and technology that you need to ensure there's never another godaway entering this country.
The mass deportation plan starts with removing dangerous criminals, but other illegal immigrants will also have to leave. Families with mixed statuses can all be deported together. Trump's border czar Tom Homan is willing to work with adults who came to the U.S. as minors. He said they may have a chance to stay through a legislative solution. But that would depend on Democratic concessions on border security measures.
Coming up, it was a case that made national headlines some 2 decades ago. Now the Duke Lacrosse accuser says she made it all up. Dave Martin joins us to explain after the break. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer now for your sports news. We're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, a lot going on today, but let's start in baseball, where there were several big trades today, with Houston reportedly trading Kyle Tucker to Chicago and the Yankees getting reliever Devin Williams from Milwaukee.
Yeah, the Yankees upgraded their pitching after missing out on Juan Soto and losing closer Clay Holmes. Both actually players went to the Mets instantly. Now Williams is a 2-time All-Star, is one of the better closers in the game. His nickname is nicknamed the Airbender. It's that good. Now for Williams, the Yankees reportedly are giving up pitcher Nestor Cortez and a prospect. Meanwhile, the Cubs gave up 3 young players for outfielder Kyle Tucker, who's a 3-time All-Star. Now I'm very confused about this deal. Houston, I mean, it seems like they're in win now mode. I don't know why they're trading one of their better players. Maybe they're looking to free up salary to be able to re-sign Alex Bregman. It's really unclear at this point what's going on there. In any case, Tucker actually could be a rental for the Cubs, though, because he's 1 year away from free agency, where he'll probably command like a 9-figure deal to whoever signs him. So anyway, these dominoes are all falling after Soto's signing. I'm sure there's going to be more to come.
Well, speaking of Soto, elsewhere in the game, the Mets introduced their new $765 million outfielder, Juan Soto. Did he reveal why he chose them over the Yankees?
You know, he actually said there were 5 teams in the running. You had the Mets and the Yankees, but also the Dodgers, Red Sox, and Blue Jays. Now, obviously, the Mets went out with that $765 million bid. But actually, the contract could be worth more than that. The deal includes an option for Soto to opt out of the contract and become a free agent after 5 years. That's actually common. But the Mets can avoid that by adding an extra $4 million a year to his salary for the remaining 10 years. That's actually very uncommon. But in that scenario, the total contract is then worth more than $800 million. I mean, it's already the biggest contract in professional sports history, but it could be even bigger. So he's not going to be hurting for money after this deal.
Well, shifting gears and topics a bit, the woman who falsely accused several Duke Lacrosse players of rape in 2006, that's a case that made national headlines, now publicly admits that she made it up and hopes they can forgive her.
Yeah, when this case hit the press, I mean, it was a sensational story. She's black, she was hired as a stripper for a party by these white lacrosse players. Fair or not, they were considered, preppies, privileged. She wasn't. She said they raped her. Now, plenty of the media really ran with this story, assuming they were, guilty. The public pressure was so much, Duke ended up canceling the rest of their lacrosse season. Their coach even resigned, and this is a top-notch program. But the players were then found innocent the following year in 2007. The state attorney general's office said there was no evidence an attack occurred. They found no DNA evidence or a witness to corroborate her story. This is Crystal Mangum is her name. Incidentally, she is now serving time for killing her boyfriend in 2011. But anyway, back to this case. It wasn't just her, though. The prosecutor as well in this case was disbarred for lying and misconduct. Anyway, Mangum said in an interview with the Let's Talk with Kat podcast, quote, "I testified falsely against them by saying that they raped me when they didn't, and that was wrong," end quote. Now, to me, it's really a reminder of how much power the media has and really the responsibility we have to just report the facts. So this was quite the case here.
Does sound like a complicated case. Moving to football news, the Rams beat the 49ers last night, 12-6. Now, San Francisco is now just 6-8 a year after making the Super Bowl. What do you make of this?
Yeah, I'm pretty surprised. I mean, they're all but out of playoff contention, despite a very talented roster. I mean, they've certainly had a number of injuries, I'll grant that. Christian McCaffrey, Nick Bosa, Brandon Ayuk, and others have all missed time. But they were a trendy preseason pick to at least make the Super Bowl or win it. I mean, I think I actually picked them to do that. Of course, I also thought the Jets would make the playoffs this time. So I've been wrong about multiple things with football. Anyway, for the Rams, they started just 1-4. They've now won 7-9 since then. They're just outside the playoff bubble. I think they're 8th. Only the top 7 make the playoffs, but there's still 3 games to go. So they have a chance. Now, I did not predict that the Rams would rebound like this either. So it's been a tough year for my predictions.
Oh, there's always next year. Dave, as always, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tiff.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.